Sarra has been a leader with a number of groups and movements, including UW Divest and Gates Divest. She's on the steering committee of Got Green. She's been an organiser with the Seattle Black Book Club and Black Lives Matter, and she drafted the unanimously passed Seattle City Council resolution that opposed the building of a new youth jail in Seattle. So can I have everyone please put their hands together for Sarra?
I often get asked why I come into these mostly white, sometimes awkward and uncomfortable mainstream environmentalist spaces as a climate justice activist. I have been asked by my peers, do you like being the token black environmentalist? But it's not as simple as that. For some of you, climate activism is a choice, maybe a moral responsibility, but for me and my people back home in Ethiopia, climate justice is life or death. My father left Ethiopia as a climate refugee 30 years ago after a climate-induced famine caused the political instability that crumbled Africa's last monarchy. That's why I put myself in these spaces, push myself to get a seat at the table, because if I don't, our voices won't be there, because our definition of justice is not always the same. For example, the long-held belief of mainstream environmentalists that the safe limit of warming is 2 degrees, but 2 degrees of warming is when the rich white countries of the global north start to burn. But at 2 degrees of warming, small island nations go underwater, and much of Africa becomes a desert. That's why we fight for a seat at the table and demand 1.5 to stay alive, because for my people, that's what's at stake right now, their lives. And you must understand how we got here in the first place. The global north came into the global south, colonized our countries, took our resources, including precious metals and fossil fuels, and used this to build up their countries, while our countries suffer. We have to look at climate change through the lens of colonization. Otherwise, when we say the least responsible are most affected, there's no blame put back on the Western countries who are responsible for this mess. And when we flee our countries because of climate change, the manifestation of the West pollution, you have a duty to let us into your country. So when we say climate justice, we're talking about the liberation of the most oppressed. We're talking about safeguarding the global south from the impacts of climate change that we are already experiencing, not waiting until after the USA takes climate change seriously. In Paris, the world agreed to keep warming below 1.5 degrees of warming. And now it's up to us to enforce it. Climate justice must include a new economic system because, newsflash, this one isn't working. We can no longer measure progress by gross domestic product when products come from resources of the earth, and it's a finite planet. The average Ethiopian has an ecological footprint of 0.08. The average 0.08 Earths. However, the average American has an ecological footprint of 4.5 Earths. That means if everyone on this planet lived like an American, we would need 4.5 Earths. But how many Earths do we have? 1. There is no planet B. Our current disposable society, which encourages growth and consumption over everything, is literally eating us out of the only home and planet we have. And we are kicking out the people who consume the least, because capitalism was built off of hierarchy of race, class, and gender, and perpetuates grave inequality. So when we say climate justice, we aren't just we're talking about a just transition where workers are protected and where we center communities of color, especially those from the global south, and where we learn the true definition of economy, which actually means management of home. And it's the indigenous people who know how to manage this home. Climate change is scary. We face a lot of consequences from inaction. However, if we look at how many opportunities we have, if we act now, we can have a society where energy workers don't have to risk their life at work, where the global south is no longer subjugated to living off of our crumbs, where our society is no longer driven by materialism and consumption, but by community, and where we relearn the indigenous wisdom of how to take care of the planet, which means respect the treaties. That's what I'm fighting for this weekend, and that's why I'm out here. And that's why I'm not afraid of the future, but I'm excited about the opportunities we have for a new society.